Have you ever met someone who shrugs and says, "I don't care," but somehow remembers every tiny detail the next day? Or maybe you've done it yourself. Someone leaves you on red. A friend says something that feels a little off. A coworker makes a joke at your expense. You smile. You shrug. You say, "It's whatever." Then everyone assumes you've already moved on. But later that night, the lights are off. The room is quiet. And suddenly that one moment comes rushing back. You replay every word, every expression, every pause. You imagine what you should have said. You wonder what they really meant. You tell yourself to stop thinking about it. But your brain has other plans. Why does this happen? Why do some people look completely unaffected during the day, yet spend hours thinking about it once they're alone? The answer is far more interesting than most people realize. And by the end of this video, you may discover that pretending not to care isn't always confidence. Sometimes it's the exact opposite. Most people think emotions happen immediately. If something hurts, you'll show it. If you're angry, you'll react. If you're embarrassed, everyone will know. But that's not how every mind works. For many people, emotions arrive late, much later. Picture this. You're sitting with friends. Someone makes a comment that catches you off guard. Everyone laughs. You laugh too. You don't want to make it awkward, so you act like it didn't matter. Hours later, you're lying in bed. Your brain suddenly says, "Hold on, what did they actually mean?" Now the conversation starts all over again, except this time it's happening inside your head. You replay different versions. You imagine different responses. You search for hidden meanings that may not even exist. It's almost like your emotions waited until the world became quiet before asking for your attention. That's because your brain isn't always processing emotions in real time. Sometimes it's too busy helping you get through the moment. Only later, when everything slows down, does it finally begin sorting through what happened. And that's where the real thinking begins. But here's something even stranger. Your brain absolutely hates unfinished stories. If someone suddenly becomes distant, if they don't explain themselves, if they leave you wondering what happened, your mind refuses to let it go. It's like opening 20 tabs on your computer and never closing them. They just stay there, quietly using energy. Every unanswered question becomes another open tab. Maybe they were upset. Maybe they misunderstood you. Maybe you embarrassed yourself. Maybe you're overthinking. The problem is, you don't know, and uncertainty has a funny way of getting louder after midnight. That's why one awkward conversation can stay in your head for days, while 10 good conversations disappear almost instantly. Your brain keeps searching for an ending that doesn't exist, and sometimes, the ending it creates is far worse than reality. But there is another reason people pretend they don't care, a reason that often begins years before the moment ever happens. Some people grow up believing emotions are dangerous. Maybe they were told to stop crying. Maybe they learned that showing hurt makes you look weak. Maybe every emotional reaction was met with judgment. So they adapted. Instead of expressing feelings, they buried them. Someone disappoints them. It's fine. Someone forgets about them. No worries. Someone breaks their trust. It doesn't matter. After saying those words enough times, they almost start believing them. Almost. Because emotions don't disappear just because you ignore them. They simply wait. And nighttime gives them the perfect chance to return. That's why some of the calmest people during the day have the busiest minds at night. What looks like emotional strength on the outside can actually be emotional traffic hidden beneath the surface. And your brain has another habit that makes this even worse. It loves rehearsing. Think about the last embarrassing thing that happened to you. Did you imagine the perfect response hours later? Maybe even days later? Of course you did. Almost everyone has. Your brain believes it's helping. It's trying to prepare you in case something similar happens again. So it keeps replaying the memory. Over and over, searching for a better outcome. The funny part is, Life almost never gives you the chance to use those perfect comeback lines, yet your brain keeps practicing anyway. Not because it's trying to torture you, because it thinks it's protecting you. The harder you pretend not to care, the more your brain believes there's something important to figure out. And then comes the moment that quietly traps millions of people every single night. You pick up your phone. Just one quick scroll before bed. Then you see them. They're smiling, posting photos, laughing with friends, living life like nothing ever happened. Meanwhile, you've been thinking about that interaction for hours. Your mind immediately starts telling stories. They never cared. They've already forgotten me. They're happier without me. But here's the truth. You don't actually know any of that. Your brain is filling empty spaces with assumptions, and unfortunately, our minds are naturally better at imagining negative explanations than positive ones. Thousands of years ago, this helped humans survive danger. Today, it mostly keeps us awake. Sometimes the person who says they don't care ends up caring more than anyone else. Not because they're weak, because they never allowed themselves to process what they felt honestly. There's another layer to this that almost nobody talks about. Sometimes people aren't protecting their feelings. They're protecting their image. They've spent years becoming the strong one, the independent one, the person who never gets emotional, the one everyone thinks is impossible to hurt. Admitting that someone's opinion mattered feels like breaking that image. So they smile, they stay calm, they say, "I'm good," while inside, their thoughts refuse to stay quiet. That's exhausting. Pretending requires energy. Keeping emotions hidden requires energy. Acting like everything is fine requires energy. Eventually, the audience disappears. The room becomes silent, and all the thoughts that were waiting patiently finally step forward. That's why nighttime feels different. There are fewer distractions. No conversations, no notifications, no work, no noise, just you and the thoughts you've been avoiding all day. Here's the part that changes everything. Caring isn't the problem. Pretending you don't care is, because caring means you're human. It means something mattered. Someone mattered. An experience left a mark. There's nothing wrong with that. The real problem begins when you convince yourself that acknowledging your feelings somehow makes you weak. It doesn't. In fact, the strongest people usually aren't the ones who never feel anything. They're the ones who are honest enough to admit when something affected them. They don't stay trapped there forever. They simply allow themselves to process it. And then, they let it go. Real confidence isn't pretending nothing hurts. Real confidence is knowing something hurt, without allowing it to control your future. So the next time someone casually says, "I don't care," remember, you have no idea what conversation they're having with themselves later that night, and maybe the person who seems the least affected is actually carrying the most invisible weight. What about you? Have you ever pretended something didn't bother you, only to find yourself thinking about it hours later when you were trying to sleep? Let us know in the comments. Your story might remind someone else that they're not alone. If you enjoyed this video and want to understand more of the hidden psychology behind everyday behavior, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. Thanks for watching, and remember, the loudest battles are often fought in complete silence.